Isaiah paints a vivid picture there, doesn't he? You just imagine it, don't you? These people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Imagine a dark landscape. You can't really see it. It's just rugged and jagged and dry. There is no moon in the sky. There are no stars. There's just thick cloud blanketing the landscape. As your eyes become more accustomed to the darkness, you begin to make out faint figures walking about, but they seem to be nothing more than cloaked skeletons, insignificant blots on the parched hills. And they're wandering around, grasping in the dark, unable to see. Some of them fall into pits and scream for help, but all their screams do is draw more people to them, who also fall into the same pits. Others, searching for water, wander in the wilderness, collapsing just meters away from the well, but unable to see, they lose all hope of finding refreshments. And so they lay down and die, not knowing that hope is just an arm's reach away. Some try to make a fire, creating a light of their own, but there is nothing. There is no life on this landscape. There is no fuel, no wood, no heat, no life. And they're on all fours sifting through sand, the ends of their fingers bleeding as they scrabble in the earth. There is nothing but darkness and despair. This is humanity. This is the human experience, isn't it? We can't see properly. We don't understand our lives. We desperately want to understand ourselves, but we just can't see all the dangers. So often we just walk blindly into one problem or another. We just can't seem to find happiness. And our problem is darkness, Isaiah tells us. Darkness from within and darkness that is from without. We battle against the darkness of the world as people come against us and as they upset us and hurt us and ignore us and lie to us and take advantage of us. But the darkness inside is just as scary, if not more so. We all know the thoughts of our own hearts, the decisions we make, our broken desires and appetites, our own apathy and laziness. We are overwhelmed by darkness. And sometimes it feels like there's nothing left to do but give up and let the darkness take us. Sometimes life feels that way, doesn't it? Everything's hard. It seems like everyone's against us and we don't even make good decisions for ourselves. Everything's going wrong and we might sort of say, do you know what, I swear I'm cursed. I'm cursed. And do you know what? The reality is it's not just that you feel like you're cursed. It's not just a feeling. We are cursed. The darkness is going to swallow us up in the end. That is the fate of all humanity. Merry Christmas, everybody. Everyone's thinking, remind me not to invite Pastor Doug round for a party. But this is precisely why we have Christmas. Because with Christmas there is hope. In the land of those wandering in darkness, there has dawned a great light. In the land of the cursed, there has arrived a great hope. A child in the manger, God in the flesh, Emmanuel, God with us, Jesus. The great light dawned in the impossible birth of a child born to a virgin. And it is impossible, isn't it, for a child to be born to a virgin? People say, I can't believe that, it's impossible. And we're like, yeah, I know, right? That's kind of the whole point. You see, we're not completely delusional as Christians. It's not that we believe that Jesus was born of a virgin because that's a perfectly normal thing to happen. That happens all the time. No, of course not. Of course it doesn't. And that's the whole point. This child was an impossible child. It's never happened before, and it's never happened since. It is the perfect sign for a people who live under the shadow of death. Because everyone in the darkness dies. We all die. For those that live in the darkness, escaping death is impossible. So what hope can there be? Well, we need somebody who can do the impossible. We need a sign so impossible that it shows us that the impossibility of escaping death is also possible. Are you with me? In other words, if God can do that, the virgin birth, then he can do anything. Then he can do anything. Clearly, life and the world does not have a hold on this man like it does on us. And that takes us back to Isaiah. And probably in Isaiah chapter 7 to 9, I didn't read the all 3 chapters today, but you can read them this afternoon. Isaiah chapters 7 through 8 and 9. And probably within those chapters is probably the most famous Christmas prophecy. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Boys and girls, can anybody remind me, what does Emmanuel mean? Can anybody tell me? Arash. God with us. Emmanuel means God is with us. God's here. 600 years before Jesus is born, the prophet Isaiah speaks of his birth to a virgin. But why? Why did God give this sign? Well, he gave it to provide eternal peace and security during a time of great darkness. You see, that idea of people walking in darkness is so true of all of humanity, but Isaiah was also speaking of a very particular time in Israel's history. You see, if you go and read Isaiah 7 to 9, we read about Ahaz. He's the king of Judah, and it's not going well for him. Nations are rising up against him, preparing to attack God's people. And so it's a time of national anxiety and panic. What's going to happen? Everything's going wrong. The country was in darkness and everything felt hopeless. And we read that when King Ahaz heard about all the armies outside of his city, his heart and the hearts of all the people shook as the trees of the forest shake in the wind. Have you ever been out in a forest on a windy day and you just see, sometimes the whole tree seems to be blowing, doesn't it? We know what that's like, don't we? I know what that's like, I'm sure you do. Have you felt that when your heart feels like it's shaking like a tree in a storm? Trembling, anxiety attacks, your stomach is messed up, churned over, you feel unstable, you feel depressed, you feel like everything is uncertain and unstable, and you just don't know how it's going to end. And it just feels like darkness is closing in, and it just seems like there's no hope. What are we supposed to do when this happens? Well, we need to hear truth. We need to hear truth. We need to hear comfort. And so the Lord sent Isaiah to preach to King Ahaz, to tell him what was real and what wasn't real, helping him to see that he does not need to fear the world around him, even though all these armies are coming against him, and although it seems like the end of the world, he doesn't need to worry about that if he trusts in Jesus, this one to come, this Emmanuel. The world is full of, well, it's become a popular phrase the past few years, hasn't it, of fake news. And it always has been. I think we're probably more aware of it these days. We're also told that, truth doesn't really matter. All that matters is your truth. Facts and information can be spun any way we like. And everyone wants us to believe their story, their news, their worldview. Or how many times do you hear this? Or you have to listen to this. Or this is the answer. Or, well, you hear this, but this is the real story. And we hear all these conflicting ideas and arguments, and all of them equally passionate, and yet not all of them can be right, can they? Voices ring out in the darkness, in our barren landscape, and we don't know where to go. Take us back to that vision of Isaiah, that darkness, and we're there on this landscape, and we hear people calling out, "Come this way, I've found the well." And yet another one calls out, "No, this way. This is the way to safety." "Well, I heard someone say it's over there." In the darkness, it is mass panic. People are just repeating what they've heard, everyone going every which way, hoping to find some life. Hundreds fall in the pits, thousands get lost in the hills, and those who do eventually find the source of all the shouting tend to find it wasn't a well at all. It was just a cesspool. In the darkness, we find ourselves frozen, scared to move in any given direction, worried if we take a step this way, it's going to be the wrong way, or that way, we'll get into trouble. We don't know what the future will bring, and we don't know how we're going to get ourselves out of our mess. We are lifeless characters, aimlessly wandering around in a dark world. We need light to shine on our lives, to show us what is good for us, what is true, what is bad for us. We need a light to shine, to show us the way to safety. We need a light that will show us the dangers and the pitfalls. We need a light to shine to reveal the liars and the predators. What sort of a light could this be? Well, the light has arrived, and he wants to light up your life. He wants to show you the way to live. He wants to show you how to live full and free with him, loved and safe. This light, of course, is Jesus, the one that Isaiah wrote about. He joined us. He lived our life. And he shows us how to go even through death to be with the Father. You see, only Jesus can show us what is true. Only he can show us what is good. Only he can show us where the dangers are and give us the ability to see, because he is the only one who truly sees clearly. He assures us that he has everything under control, that he loves us, and that if we turn to him and follow him, we can live in safety. Like Ahaz, we live in a time of great trouble and uncertainty. We too need perspective. We need to see things clearly and be able to work out what is dangerous and what isn't. We need to see King Jesus ruling over the world. We need his light. You see, the thing is, Jesus is ruling over the world. And when we see that and we trust him, then whatever else is going on around us, we're not scared. Because we know that Jesus has us. But if we can't see him, if we're not looking to him, well, the trouble is we turn to all sorts of other things to bring us joy and life. We look for security in our work, or money, or relationships, or entertainment. But all of these things we find can be shaken, can't they? They are unstable, they are not lasting. We need to have the eternal truth preached to us. We need to be told and reminded of truths that are far above all the headlines, far above all of the media grabbing for our attention. We need that quiet light that entered into our darkness, the light of the eternal truth of Jesus, to illuminate our lives. Only he can change us. Only he can change the way we think and feel. For many people, Christmas is just simply a day of fun and feasting. And we love those things. Those are good things. We've said that before, haven't we? But if we only ever see the food and the presents, and we never see the reality that is beyond them, if we never see the true Christmas light, then we will remain in darkness. You see, there is a reason that we are so prone to anxiety and panic attacks. There is a reason that we feel so often vulnerable and fragile. That we feel as though life is momentary, and that we feel as though we're cursed, and that a deep darkness is swallowing us up. We so often feel that way because it's true. Because it's true. Because of our sin. Because we've rejected God and walked away from him, humanity is cursed. We have cut ourselves off from the life of heaven, and we've walked out of the light into the outer darkness. That's how we got there. We have wandered out into the darkness. But there is still a place where the light shines, if we will return to it, the eternal presence of God, found in Jesus. You see, the only way for us to be saved, the only way for us to come back into the life of heaven, was actually for Jesus to come and get us. Lost in the darkness, we could never find our way back ourselves. And so we had to be brought home. The only way we could be rescued and brought back was for the eternal Son of the Father to be cast out himself into our God-forsaken darkness, and to die the God-forsaken death that we all deserved, joining himself to us. So that, having joined himself to us and become one of us, when he died and rose again to new life, he brings us with him. He carries us into that new life, into that new and glorious light. That is what happened that first Christmas. Jesus stepped down, joining us in the darkness. The Creator joined the creation. Emmanuel, God with us. He lived our human life with all its pain and sorrow. And then he fully took all of our darkness on himself at the cross, so that your life and your destiny could be changed, bringing you into his kingdom of light. So that when the eternal creeping darkness and cursed anxiety starts to scratch at your soul, you can call out to the Lord Jesus for life and help, and find a peace that nothing can ever take away. You see, this could be the greatest Christmas you've ever known, if you just call out to Jesus, the impossible Christmas King. No matter what your situation this morning, no matter what mess you find yourselves in, you can call out to Jesus. Let Jesus take your God-forsaken darkness and let him fill you with the light of the Spirit of life, so that even in the darkest winter night, you can know the warm glow of eternal security in the kingdom of heaven. All glory be to Jesus. Amen.